My name is Julie Busby. I'm the founder of Busby Group. We are a residential real estate team in Chicago, and we help all Chicagoland. And real estate has been crazy. It's always been crazy in my 20 years in doing this, but goodness, has it really been crazy. It changes almost daily since the pandemic started. Last year, we did our first annual Casual Conversations, and it was such a hit that we are doing this again. And I'm super excited to have some friends along with me. I know both of the co-panelists for over a decade, which is pretty cool. So we've got Chad Lubben. He's with Cross Country Mortgage. He's all things lending. What I love about Chad is he's creative. He thinks outside of the box, unlike a lot of lenders. And we've been chatting a lot about people who have to sell to buy, as that's a very hot topic. A lot of people say, okay, I may be able to sell, but where am I going to go now? And how am I going to work that out with financing? So Chad's got some really unique programs. So we wanted to make sure Chad was in here to touch on that. And then we also have Marcie. So Marcie and I work together at Belgravia, who is a developer in Chicago, one of the best developers in Chicago. Marcie was their in-house designer. She knows all things design. She helps a lot of developers. She also helps a lot of our clients with selections, remodels, you know, name it. We thought this was very important to have Marcie on because of, oh my goodness, all of the delays. The supply chain delays are affecting everything, including delivery of additional inventory in our marketplace. And Marcie, also it's just really fun to see some of her design tips and some trends that are coming. So Marcie and Chad, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Julie.
Of course. So the way we usually do this is we just chit chat, and I'll ask you guys questions along the way, and then feel free to ask me questions about the marketplace. And then along the way, we'll let our guests be able to submit their questions. And guests, if you want to submit a question, feel free to enter it in the chat. If you go to the chat, it'll go to everyone in the group. If you want to send it to Q&A, it just goes to the panelists. So feel free to submit some questions, and I will go ahead and dive in. So Chad, I'm going to start with you because there was a big announcement in the lending world that I think is pretty on top of a lot of people's minds, and that's rates. They're going up. So I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on that, what you are projecting for 2022.
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't look at your 401ks. Don't look at your stock accounts. We're not looking at that stuff right now because all markets are crazy and not making a lot of sense right now. And you know what usually causes this in the markets is some sort of surprise. A lot of times analysts, traders, they know when things are coming, they know what the trends are. And not that the markets are always predictable, but you can kind of see what the swings are going to be. You know, unfortunately, the Federal Reserve not only announced here over the last month, 2 months, that they're going to be doing some prime rate increases. That's common when inflation happens. And just the cost of goods are getting higher. That's what equals inflation. So the way they combat that is by increasing the rate that banks borrow money to each other at. So that can work against mortgage rates. It doesn't always, but what definitely works against interest rate is what they're doing right now. I call it the COVID special we've had the last 2 years. So we've had these all-time record low interest rates, and they've been fake because they're not a normal market. What's been happening is the Federal Reserve have been buying mortgage bonds and artificially setting mortgage rates by being the biggest market buyer. So really what happens to your mortgage after you close, a lot of people think banks collect all the interest. If I do a mortgage for you at Cross Country, we get all the interest on it. That's not at all what happens. We get a fraction of it to borrow the money and to service the loan, and it sits in bond funds. So think of your 401k, the pipe fitters or teachers unions pension fund. These big funds buy these large pools of investments to collect the interest on it, so you get a rate of return. Well, the biggest buyer of those bonds the last 2 years have been the Federal Reserve. So they've been continuing just to gobble up all these mortgage bonds. And in fact, they own over half of the mortgages in our country. Well, that's not sustainable. So it's been known that they're going to do what's called tapering. And tapering is when they not only stop buying those mortgage bonds, they start selling their positions. And we all knew it was coming, but it wasn't supposed to come until April and May. And they've been pretty transparent about the moves that they're going to make so the markets can digest it and you can see normal market flows. Well, we came in on January 2nd. They said, surprise, we're starting right now. So that's never good for any markets. And it's just been really a bloodbath to interest rates here the first 20 days of the year. So still very good interest rates, way below historic average for interest rates over the last 30 years. You're seeing 30 years in the mid threes, you're seeing 15 years in the higher twos, but it's been changing quickly. And then just we look back to Christmas and we're locking in 2.875, 2.75 rates, and it's already up to 3.5, 3.625, depending on your credit score. So we've just seen this really big push up. And the market analysts that I know and respect and follow, who's taught me a lot about how these bonds trade, is saying 4.5% by May, right? So that's another 0.5% higher than where we're at, or another full percent, excuse me, higher than where we're at right now.
So it's so interesting to hear you say that, because so many people are saying, yeah, we're going to have interest rate increase, but it's not going to be much. So that's very interesting. So then it is important for those who are, especially first-time home buyers, to pay attention to rates.
Absolutely.
Wow. Someone made a good point the other day, is to have buyers, as you are projecting to buy in the next 6 months, make sure you have some padding, because rates will be going up. So
we're doing that on all of our pre-approvals right now, Julie. We're just giving wiggle room, because the worst thing is, it's going to take usually a little bit of time to find a home, and there's a lot of competition right now. So if the rate runs up 1% and then you find the home, we don't want to be the person to tell the people, like, you no longer qualify, this price point doesn't work for you. So we are giving some wiggle room and putting some, it's a double-edged sword, because you can't be too conservative with how the upward trajectory in prices have been. So you got to be a little aggressive on your offers, but we also have to give a little bit of wiggle room for that forecasted interest rate increase.
Interesting. Wow. That's crazy. Are people, it's probably, the rates are still probably way too low, but I know there's an opportunity to buy down a rate. Has anyone started to talk to you about that?
Yeah, we always give those options. I mean, anytime I work with someone, I don't try and do the marketing smoke and mirrors that all mortgage lenders, not all, but most mortgage lenders do. I just try and be transparent of, hey, this is the rate, this is the cost at this rate, right? Here's another option, here's your rate, here's the cost at these, and try and give 2 or 3 options to just be transparent that the rate could be lower, but that's going to push your costs higher.
So to remind the audience, to lock a rate, you do have to have a property already identified and a contract. So I want to remind you, and what's neat, and having Marcie here with new construction, you can in new construction lock a rate. There's a whole nother process for that too, if it's a few months out. And Chad, I know that you have experience with that too. So keep that in mind. You have to already be under contract in order to lock a rate. And how long is a rate lock usually good for?
We have them up to 1 year, right?
Oh, okay.
But,
great.
With new construction, I'm sure Marcie will tell you it's very unpredictable of when that closing date is. So I just would suggest, it's the developers and the builders are at the mercy of the materials and the supply chain and delivery. And that's not easy right now. You definitely have to give yourself a pad of 90 days. If you think it's going to be done in 6 months, you need a 9-month rate lock. If you think it's going to be 9, you should lock in for a year, because it gets very costly if you have to extend the rate lock. And I have not met a builder yet that says, okay, I'll take on that cost too, even though I have increasing material costs and my profit margin is shrinking.
Agreed. So
So
I'm going to
just
switch.
one last thing, if I could finish out on that, just to give you an idea,
Yes.
like our average loan amount last year was almost exactly 500,000, and 1% on a $500,000 mortgage is $308 per month.
Oh,
So it's a car
wow.
payment difference, right?
It is.
1% in
It
interest.
is. Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Well, I'm going to switch it up. We'll come back to you, Chad, I'm sure, because I've already seen some questions come in. Marcie, just some fun things. Tell us what you see on trends for 2022. Do you think we're more modern, traditional? What are we seeing coming down the pipeline?
I think that we're getting a lot more color, a lot more texture, a lot more warmth. We're spending a lot more time in our homes. And so, you know, everything has been put under a microscope because we're staring at the same walls every day. And I think people have started to become a lot more intentional about their design and really examining what truly works for them, whether or not it makes sense or they've seen it done before, especially with regards to furniture layouts and multifunctional spaces, and making sure that your space is being used to its maximum potential, because we need our spaces to be bedrooms and offices and dining room tables and, you know, school desks, and, you know, all of our spaces are wearing a lot of different hats. So just, you know, coming into design with intentionality and making sure that you're, you know, maximizing each and every room.
So I have a question for you. Would you say, I mean, it's the big word on HGTV, open concept. Do you think that's still a thing, or do you think people like to have rooms now?
So people are definitely moving away from a full open concept, and there, you know, kind of some hybrid half open type of layouts that, you know, like a split level or something like that, that kind of is a little separated but visually connected. But I think there's also just in an aesthetic move, vintage and kind of a nod to historical design has certainly become a lot more prominent. And, you know, turn of the century design, Victorian homes, you know, original Chicago greystones, that sort of thing, they all had separate rooms. And I think they're definitely, the pendulum is swinging to separate spaces because we are working from home and our kids are doing school from home and we're all together all the time and we need our own space to breathe. So
Absolutely.
I think being able to get away from each other a little bit has become more attractive than everything happening in one space.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've seen that as well. We're seeing a lot of people wanting vintage, and being able to separate out the space. So totally agree. So we got a question in our Q&A, and it is, I am hearing about many rental folks moving from the city to the burbs. I own a rental property and my unit is coming up for rent in June. Should I plan to lower the rent to attract a new tenant? Actually, last year, I probably would have said yes, but we are seeing the rental market coming back. I actually just was in a forum about this last week, and the rental market is coming back. It doesn't mean we're seeing a large increase year over year, but I think you will be okay on your rental. I am happy to take a assess for you as well, but I don't think you'll need to lower because we are seeing the rental market. There are some people who are still trying to figure out what they're going to do, and so they are renting while they're getting some ducks in a row. So I wouldn't worry about that. Okay.
How do you feel, Julie, about someone like that? You know, if they do have plans to maybe eventually sell the place, is this a good time? Do you think this is near the top of the market to sell? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I think now is definitely a time to sell because we are in a seller's market at the moment in spring market, especially in the city. And I saw that this rental property is in the city. We are in a spring market, which is our busy seller's market. I will say the city tends to be more seasonal. We are a seller's market during spring market, and then we'll slow down. So sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Let me turn off my phone. And then we will, we tend to slow down in the city in the summertime. And then we have a little bit of an uptick in the fall. My point is absolutely now is a good time to sell, especially with rates increasing. A lot of buyers are buying now. And I do think that's going to help our sellers with their price points. And I don't know, you know, we'll have that same high demand, low inventory with rates going up, this great, you know, this opportunity for a seller to sell. So I think there is good
Yeah, it's kind of
opportunity.
like we can almost guarantee there's at least one good year left because there's so much pent up demand and there's so
Yes.
much activity. And yeah, the rates might push a few people out. But is that going to happen next year again, right? We can almost guarantee it's going to be another really strong market. I'm seeing a ton of activity,
Great.
not normal for, you know, -7 wind chill and 100 people standing outside of an open house. I've heard a couple of my agents that I work with say that's not normal, right? So is that trend going to continue into next year? That's tough to say.
I totally agree. Completely agree. I will say this time last year, we literally did casual conversations the same week last year. And yes, we are starting to pick up. This year, my phone was off the hook. And of course, it's like literally ringing as we're talking. It's just things are moving quick. So I completely agree. Now, someone has another question for you, Chad. Have rates changed for investment properties that is not your primary residence? I know you touched on that earlier, but
yeah, that's an awesome question. They have, and about the same scale that primary residents have. It's been about a 0.5 to 0.75% increase. You know, the low of investment properties were, you know, 3.75, depending your credit score and equity position. You're seeing those push higher threes, even seeing a touch with lower equity positions, not quite perfect credit into the fours. You're about to see a very large increase. At Cross Country, we are starting that increase. And this isn't just our company, this is industry wide, by the way. We're going to see that February 1st. So any second home and any investment property that we deliver to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which are the conventional loan providers, that's a $647,200 loan amount or under. They are putting a 200 basis point pricing adjuster on. So that's equal to about 0.75% rate. So with normal rates already pushing up and they're putting this add-on to investment properties and second homes, they just got a lot more expensive on those units.
wow. Interesting.
Property, yeah. So they,
right.
You know, we were talking about that briefly. The why behind it is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you know, their main jobs is to, not that they don't support investors, they do, but the default rate, the late payments on second home and investment properties are 7 times more primary residents. So their thinking is, gosh, there's so many people out there not even able to get their primary residence because of inventory challenges and can't own their own shelter and can't provide a real home for their family. Why are we giving similar prices to investors and to people doing it as second homes when they're turning around and Airbnb-ing it, and they're using our money and making us take the risk for their investment, right? They want to not only do they think it's more risk, but they want to promote more primary residences and less competition for those people who still haven't been able to get in their own home.
Makes sense. Good.
So yes, very long answer to yes, right?
Yes, we are.
Going up
Yes,
drastically on investment properties and second homes. You know, I would expect them all in the 4s. And if the rate increase trajectory keeps happening, mid 4s to 5s.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We have a question from Marcie. What are some vendors that have a good lead time, and are there any to avoid? And I assume that's with furniture, wallpaper, anything finishings on the home.
Everyone is struggling right now. I will say, and I don't like to bemoan anyone specifically, but I've had a lot of trouble, and a lot of other designers have had a lot of trouble with West Elm. If we're talking retail vendors, they aren't updating their estimated ship times. And so when you look and something says that in stock will ship in 2 to 4 weeks, that's just simply not true. And it's gotten to the point where if you look for shipping updates, it will say, "We are sorry, at this time, we cannot estimate when your item will be delivered."
Wow.
So they are not doing great. CB2, honestly, I've done a couple of big installs in the last 6 months, and CB2 has been the one that if I'm like in a pinch and I need a piece, I can, filter their items for in stock ready to ship, and that is actually accurate, and it will show up when it's supposed to. And I haven't had a lot of trouble with them, and they're a similar price point to West Elm. So I just go to them if I do need those, one-off pieces, and they've done really well throughout the entire pandemic, actually.
What about appliances? What are you seeing? Certain appliances, I already know which are not great to order right now, but you may want to share that.
Wolf Sub-Zero it seems like the biggest offender right now. I don't want to say that because I think it's a great product,
Right.
But I have designers that put in orders for Wolf Sub-Zero package in April of 2021, and they were supposed to be delivered in December of 2021, and now they have an estimated delivery of June 2022. So we are well past 12 months of waiting. So my advice for any building materials, so we're talking cabinets, tile, if you are doing a renovation of any kind, make sure that the thing that you're ordering doesn't just say in stock ready to ship, that they have the amount that you need, that it exists in a domestic warehouse somewhere, preferably Midwest local, if that's where your project is, because otherwise you're just leaving yourself open for heartache. I read a CNN article yesterday that they're actually changing the law so that 18-year-olds can drive semi-trucks now, because there is such a shortage of drivers. Freight and delivery has just been hit massively difficult. I mean, from material shortages to port worker shortages. I mean, the Port of LA is backed up weeks and weeks and weeks, and then there aren't delivery drivers. And so you want to make sure that the thing that you need in 2 weeks is physically there and exists.
Right. Wow. So one thing I want to point out with that whole sentiment is, if you are going to sell a home and it needs some updating, I would strongly recommend working with myself, with Marcie. We do a great job tag teaming and helping people get prepped with things that might already be in stock, so that you can already have the home updated, at least minor updates, so that you are already updated. And a buyer, because some buyers are putting pause on having to do a project because they want it already done. They don't want to have to run into supply chain issues. But also, I think now is more important than ever to work with any designer, because they're going to know if you do want to do a remodel, and we totally get, I'm a remodel like junkie, so I totally get it, but make sure you work with a professional who knows about lead time and what vendors to work with, etc.
I will also say another piece to this is that tradesmen and women are slammed right now. And people are essentially, begging and borrowing to try and get people to come to their house and do a project. And so if you are planning on doing a project, don't expect the first contractor you call to say, yeah, I have an opening. Great, be there Tuesday. You're probably going to be calling and leaving messages and working with somebody, any designer, Julie, people who have, kind of the inside scoop in the industry and have a Rolodex of people that they can call on is really helpful, because it's tough to get the tile setter and the wallpaper hanger and the electrician in right now.
It's so true. We are very fortunate at Busby Group. We have vendors who love us and we love them, and we are able to get people in the door within days, which is unheard of right now. So we are very fortunate. So totally agreed.
That
Okay.
just blows my mind when you say Wolf and Sub-Zero, which is such a premium name, and you see in so much luxury and great developments that
they're also made domestically, which is the other mind-boggling thing about them being so behind. But the issue is, it's the chips. It's the same reason you can't get a Ford F-150. It's the computer chip.
Yeah.
Right.
So they just, I think because they're such a luxury product and they have a smaller scale of production, because they do a smaller volume typically than like a GE or a Genair or, whoever, that it's just been tougher to kind of stay in front of the 8 ball on it for them.
So I'm going to give
a computers chip company, girls.
Right. That's what we need to do. Yeah, we're doing.
I think it's actually the silica mining. I think it's the actual raw material that's coming out of the ground that's the problem.
I'll leave that to you to figure out.
Great. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to give a little plug, and Marcie knows this. I'm a GE fan, believe it or not, and I just ordered GE appliances, and they said it was going to be 6 months, and I got my dishwasher in 2 weeks. So there's some tricks I know, and we also get friends and family if you work with Busby Group for some appliances. So I actually like my GE. Okay, what do we have here? We have someone else. I am looking for a home and not seeing much inventory. Are we expected to see more new construction in Chicago market, even with all the material setbacks? Okay, so this is a good question for all of us, because I know all of us work with developers in Chicago. So yes, last year we did not see a lot of new inventory on new construction, other than those that were already in production and were able to keep construction going during shelter in place. So sorry, my girls are coming to say goodnight. So sorry. Say good night. Okay.
Good night.
So unless they were already in production, things were not delivering. So last year we hardly had any new development deliver. And actually, the one very well-known building that was delivered last year was the Trib. And they had some great sales because everyone was flocking to new construction. There weren't many options. And 1400 Monroe, Marcie, I know you're involved in that one. So anyways, we will start to see some new construction coming this year, because some of those worked through those delays last year, and now they're delivering now, and they're supposed to deliver last year. I'm seeing more boutique buildings like that coming. Marcie and Chad, you all might have your finger on the pulse, because I know you all work with some developers as well. So if you know of some other projects, I do think we'll see some coming in this year.
Definitely. I mean, there was Triangle Square that delivered last year in Peoria Green, but they're definitely, it's happening slower and things are taking a different path than they used to. But I think that we'll see a lot more units being delivered in the next, 18 months.
I do too.
I certainly see, some coming on as well. The problem, at least nationally, I can speak to Chicago a little bit, but the national problem is there is demand for 5.8 million just to keep up with the current supply of demand for buyers. That total build is 5.8 million, and there is 1.3 doors produced last year. So just to catch up with last year's demand, they're behind over 4 million housing starts, right? So just to keep up with last year, don't add another buyer coming onto the market this year of someone that says, okay, I'm done renting, or I'm getting engaged and I want my first house, or we're starting a family and need more space. None of that, we're 4 million housing starts behind from last year. So just that gives you an idea of how much of a shortage we have nationally. You know, that's going to take a long time to dig out of just last year. And with what Marcie's saying, like the whole wool thing just blew my mind. I was like, that's right there. That's the problem, right?
Right.
If a
They can't deliver.
big name like that takes over a year to get you a freaking fridge, like that's a huge problem. That just really blew my mind. But it's not an issue that's going to be worked out for maybe ever, but definitely not in a year or two. Like this is a long time problem. Would you agree, Julie?
Yes, I do. And I think we're all getting creative. I've had quite a few new construction projects where we've brought in loaner refrigerators from the showroom and loaner things just to be able to deliver, let the lender close, because the lender won't close without appliances, FYI. So you need appliances to close. But yeah, and I think we're all getting creative. And I think also builders are getting creative as to what they're trying to deliver sooner. So
it's happening with furnishings too. I've seen a huge uptick in people getting a lot more comfortable with vintage pieces and going to vendors like Cherish, because those are all one-off, you know, resale type of pieces, and it's available. It's right there. It will ship to your house. Or going to, you know, like Dial M for Murder is an awesome mid-century modern vendor that's a local shop in Chicago, and you know, sourcing stuff from those types of places, because you're going to get it, and people want their house, they're in their home every day, they want it to be done, they don't want to look at half-finished projects anymore. And so, you know, doing that, which is great for the environment, you know, reusing those pieces. But yeah, definitely a lot of creative problem solving. I had a project put in marine grade plywood. There was like a tongue and groove solid wood product spec'd for ceiling cladding, and it wasn't going to come in, or the cost became prohibitive like overnight with freight and delivery, because freight and delivery costs are kind of, you know, all over the place these days. But they got, you know, the architects got creative, and we put some marine grade plywood on the ceiling, and it looks great. But you know, you just kind of, you can't be wedded to any one specific home, any one specific sofa, any one specific refrigerator, because there just aren't any guarantees right now. You kind of have to be a little bit flexible.
Could we talk about some solutions, Julie, that we can have to some of these issues?
Yes, and like Marcie said, I mean, we could be open to resales, because there are other resales, and there's opportunities to buy a property that you know, you can paint and you can refurbish things. So that's absolutely an option. But I do think there are some new developments that had been queued up in the last 2 years that are finally delivering now, or this year. So I do see some hope of some new delivery coming in.
Cool.
So
I mean, and I think, honestly, I think I'm a case study in what you had to do for me last year.
yeah,
You know, I was gung-ho. I have 2 kids. We were looking at single family homes with a yard in Avondale. We put in offers on, I think, 5 places. We got outbid every single time. And we had to adjust, and we're now in a townhome in Bucktown that we absolutely love. It was the perfect thing for us, and Julie helped walk us through, you know, here are the reasons that you wanted what you wanted initially, and here are the reasons why I think this is going to work for you. And we've been sublimely happy for the last 18 months, and it was a great purchase. And, you know, but we had to be willing to kind of let this idea of what we thought was perfect for us go, because it wasn't realistic, and we weren't going to get it.
I think that's it. Knowing that there's options. I chatted with a buyer last night, and he was like, I have option one route where I go this way, and one route where I go this way. And it's great. Let's have options. Don't be so set on, I need a brand new construction Bucktown home within these 4 blocks. That's harder to come by right now. it
Do
can
you
be
think-
doable. I actually know one coming, but but I would say, let's know, and it takes a good realtor to know, like, be able to say, this is a good option for you. Marcie, it checks all of your boxes, and with your design eye, this could be amazing. And so I'm happy we landed there for sure.
Well, and you and I worked through, with my lender, and having a good lender is hugely important because we had I need to sell the plan is to sell our current condo to buy this new place. And I know that was something that you guys were talking about at the beginning of the call is, what are some solutions when that needs to happen in such a competitive market
environment. So that's a good segue, Marcie. Well done. You need to be like Vanna White. That was amazing.
Sounds like I've done this before.
Yes. Chad, tell us about. There are some options, and the reason we wanted to touch on this is because it is such a hot topic. So many people need to sell to buy. So many people have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom condo, and need more space because we're all working from home. They have babies, and they need more space. So the big question is, and honestly, with how competitive it is to buy a home, it's hard to get a home sale contingency approved. So Chad, I know it's hard to touch on all your options because you and I sat down and there was like 20 options you and I discussed. So one, I'd say get a consultation with Chad because he has options, but maybe if you want to touch on something that's been a really neat, unique program that you have.
Yeah, the main one is big reason I moved across country is just their innovation, and our CEO is I don't want to call him a risk taker, but he sees situations and try and looks for solutions. So we just had all this money we've made on refinances. Instead of sticking that all in his pocket, he started a loan portfolio called Signature Select. It's backed by Goldman Sachs too. So we have a little private equity money in it. And what they believe in and what we believe in is this is a real problem, right? And people that have good equity positions in their home, they have an asset and they're not able to really do much with it. They feel pigeonholed because they don't want to put their property on the market and have it sell so quickly, and they can't find something else. But yet they need those funds. Maybe number one, they need those funds to put down on the new home, or they don't qualify supporting both mortgages, which is what you have to do to get a non-contingent pre-approval. And what that means is, hey, I don't have to sell to buy this new home. I can support both mortgages, right? Now, that limits a lot of people, right? Their wealth is tied up into their home's equity, and their income isn't such where they can support 2 large mortgage payments, right? So we came out with a program called Signature Select. And what that does is it allows you to go buy the new home before you sell your current home. So our standards for it is you have to have a 20% equity position in your current home. So your loan amount can't be bigger than 80% of what we appraise the property for. And if that happens, we don't count that property against you. Okay, so it allows you to go out and buy this new home. You do have to have a large down payment for the new home. It's 25%. You can borrow that from a 401k. Maybe you can get a gift from a family member. We're very flexible with where that money comes from. Sometimes I've seen people have large enough equity positions in their home that we can borrow against their current home, put it down on the new home. It still doesn't count against them, and that we can get them in that new home. So that's been the main program where I see most lenders don't have access to, Julie, where we can help people out in this situation. It's our Signature Select program. And it just allows people to go out, buy their new property, get settled, maybe fix up, declutter, do the things that they have to do for you to get top dollar when you sell their place. And really our only requirement is go buy your new home, and you have to list with Julie within 90 days after buying the new home. That has to be an agreement that you sign during the loan process, that you commit to listing the property within 90 days of buying the new home.
So it's really cool is, I mean, the fact that they don't even show that debt as debt when you commit to listing. That's a big deal if you have to sell to buy, a
Right.
very big deal. And also, like you said, if you can even take 90 days to list it. And what's cool is if you do need to update it, know that we also have the opportunity at Busby Group to help pay for those updates up front, and then we just get reimbursed at the closing table. So that's a really unique program we have too. So
Yeah,
then
so
you
you
can
can
use
get a
more
money to fix up the place so you can sell it
Exactly.
for them for top dollar, right?
Exactly.
And wouldn't you
Exactly.
agree? I mean, maybe you can talk about your history. The most of the time, places where you can get everything out, not have personal stuff in there, you can stage it. You're going to get likely more out of that home than something that's lived in, correct?
At least 5% more. Yes. Yes. So absolutely. It's important to showcase, especially now. You want to show a buyer that they can move in right away. So that's huge. I know we're running late because we said we were going to keep this to like 40 minutes, I think. So we're at 40 minutes now. We have one last question, which I think is a good one. What about the suburbs? Are they too inflated to buy right now? And I think that's a good one because yes, there are multiple offers going on in the suburbs. As Marcie likes to talk about the pendulum, she always tells me like the pendulum goes from modern to traditional, modern to traditional. I stole that and I've been using that for the last few years of like the pendulum swings to city burbs. And it was very much city for the last 15 years. And now we're swinging to burbs. So the burbs are having their moment. Let them have it. Let the burbs have a moment. And they're going to have a moment for probably a good 7 years. Like Chad was touching on, there's demand built up and there's not enough inventory. And I think we're going to so I don't think be discouraged from buying in the suburbs because I think you're going to be just fine if you buy, because I do think the trend is to have more space, whether that's in the burbs or the city. The trend is to have more space. So I would not be too alarmed to move on it, and you want to take advantage of the rates now before they go up. So just a hot touch on that. I think we covered all the questions. I almost said y'all. I haven't brought up my y'all from Texas and I'm not going to say how many years. So everyone, thanks for coming. It was wonderful to see some familiar names over here. Thanks for joining us. We will be recording this, and well, we did record it, but we're going to be sending it out. Marcie, Chad, did either of you have anything else you want to touch on? Marcie, I know you had some cool design tips, but we're running low, so I can even send them out and share them on our social.
That's just fine. I mean, the year end and year beginning roundup of design tips, they're everywhere. My biggest advice right now is just to be flexible and expect delays unless you physically have your hands on it and can take it home with you. I will also say, I don't know, Julie, if you've used them. I just have used them a ton in the last little bit, but schleppers have saved my life.
Oh, schleppers.
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't used them yet. Okay. So yeah, share.
So if you are hauling stuff out to declutter before you list, if you need a old freezer dumped or moved out of your house, you just go to schlepp.com. I don't work for them. I have no stake in the company. They're just great young guys that literally show up and move stuff for you. It's amazing. But it's just it's like another piece of the puzzle of getting your project done and having, somebody reliable that you can, have come help you out during the moving and listing and real estate process.
Yes. It's now more important than ever to have your right vendors in place, to have your right team in place, because there are so many moving parts. So we are happy and here to help. Chad, did you have anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off?
No, I think Marcie said one thing, flexibility, right? If you find a property that checks 80% of your boxes, your non-negotiables, make it your choice to cancel the contract. There's outs throughout the process. I've heard so many people just upset with themselves that they didn't go really aggressive after a property and they had maybe one thing they didn't like that they could have fixed, right? So know what your non-negotiables are and know what you have to bend on. I think flexibility, like Marcie said, is number one. Number two is patience. Keep putting offers in, don't get discouraged. Usually the persistent win. And the third thing is preparation. Be super prepared. Do a buyer consultation with Julie and her team. Do a home buying consultation with me. The more prepared you are, even if you don't think if you're looking online, you're going out, you're a home buyer or you're a potential home buyer, right? It's like
True.
when I just bought a new car, I didn't just show up for the car lot for any reason. I was in the market to buy a car, right? So if you're out looking, be prepared, because there's 40 other people who are.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, team. Good to see you. And 2022 is going to be a good year. We are seeing some phenomenal, exciting things of people buying, their dream home, and we are excited to help them. It's busier than ever. And now is still a good time to catch rates and work with a professional like Marcie to help you source things so you can make it your dream home. So, all right, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you at the next casual conversation. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.
Nice to meet you, Marcie.